Hello, Nordangus students, and welcome to episode 4 of our programming using Python Turtle series. And in this episode, we were going to look at functions. And functions is basically where we can create our own blocks of code. If you ever look at Scratch, you can create your own blocks of code from using already existing code to things that you might repeat over and over again. So in this episode, we're going to identify what a function is and its application and apply our knowledge of functions to creating programs where common tasks can be called by a single name. And that's the idea of a function. So we can create a program of common tasks and we just call it up. So let's have a look at how this looks. Now, this is what I've created before in the previous episode. I am going to go File and Save As, and we will go call this Functions. And this program, if I go to Run and Run Module, it will create a new program, and I can type how many times I want it to repeat, and it will then draw. It'll repeat, it'll keep drawing the shapes, but getting bigger each time. Now, coming back, if let's say we want to draw a set number of squares in a row, we can then do that quite easily. Now I'm going to delete my variables for a minute. I want to repeat this. Let's say I'm going to delete this loop going for 10. And we're just going to say I want to repeat this 4 times. And let's just get rid of the length. We'll say we want to turn right 90, which is a square, which that's the number of degrees determined with a square. And we'll say forward 100. So this draws me 1 square, or it should do. So let's have a look. So that's done 1 square. Now, if let's say I want to draw multiple squares, I can then just say turtle dot pen up, open close bracket, turtle dot forward, and we'll say 120, turtle dot pen down, open close, and let's just say I can just copy and paste this over and over again, and it will draw multiple squares. So if I press F5, it's going to draw multiple squares over and over again. Now that's not a very efficient way of programming at all, because we're just repeating code over and over again. Now we can do this much faster by using what's called functions. So I'm going to delete all the code except 2 parts, which is my square and my gap, my space. And just before my square drawing, I'm going to create a function, so defining a function called square, open close brackets. We don't need to pass any values through this. And I'm going to select the code and tab it in. So I've got some white space there. So I've got a function called square, and within there, I've got the code for a square. Same again, I'm going to create a function for space, like so. Nothing is going to pass through, because if I had a variable, I could pass it through here, and I'm going to put space. And then all I need to do at the end is just call these. So I can just say, so I've created 2 commands. So I could just say square, I can say space. And if I want to, if I just copy and paste this, like there, I've got 6 lines of code here. And all that does is it says square, runs this, space runs this, square runs this, space runs this, square runs this, space runs this one. And press F5, and we should now see our 3 squares. However, again, that's not very efficient because I've got 6 lines of code here. Let's just delete these 4, and we can turn this into a loop. So I can just say for I in range, and I can say 10. So instead of saying these 2 lines of code, and I've repeated another 10 times, I can just write for I in range 10, indent these in, so tab these in, so there's white space. It will now repeat this 10 times. So this makes it much more efficient. Same. It's exactly the same. Okay? Like so. So I'm calling different things. I can do the same again. For example, I can say, let's just copy and paste here. I can call one triangle. And we know that a triangle is going to be turned 3 times. And I can say 90 degrees. Instead of 90 degrees, I need to do it 360 divide by 3. So I can either write it as the formula, and it will do that, or I can write it as 120. I do like to write it as the formula because I'm lazy. I like the computer to do it for me. So down here, I can then say triangle and then space. And what you should now find is it will run, it will do this, and it will then do square, triangle, square, triangle, square, triangle, square, triangle, like so. We can even get it to do maybe any shape, perhaps. That involves a bit more different. So let's just delete, or let's just go to options, and we will then format and then comment out. So we're commenting out this. So the code's still there, but we've added some we've just commented out as comments. Therefore the code's not going to run. And if we want it to run, we can just go back to format and uncomment. So it means it will run. It's a good way of having test code. We can then do the same again, but we can say any shape, for example. So let's just create a function. And let's call it shape. What do we need to define in terms of the shape? Well, we want to know how many sides there are. So let's go sides here. And it's going to be 360, and the turning is going to be 360 divided by sides. And maybe we want to have the length here. So we've got two variables, sides and length. And then in this brackets here, after the function, I need to pass through 2 variables. So I need to pass through sides, and I need to pass through length. And this is where I'm going to call these up. So for example, I can say sides equals int, because it's a number we're asking for, input, and then in brackets here, and of course 2 speech marks here, and then brackets, we can say enter number of sides, and then underneath I can then say length, enter length of shape, and then all we need to do next is we then say sides, not sides, we want shape, because this is our, just let's check, this is our function name. So we say shape, open and close brackets, and which is first sides and then length. So let's just do this the same, sides and then length. And then what will happen is it'll ask for input from the user for these two, for sides and length, and then it will put the contents of sides into here, the contents of length into here when it runs this function, and it will run this function here, and it will then fill the variable sections in there to draw our shape. Let's see if this runs. F5, okay. First thing it's asking number of sides. So let's see 10. Length, we'll say 50. Enter. No errors come up, so hopefully this works. Let's go back, and it's drawn our 10-sided shape. So we can now have a function that asks for input from the user, and it will draw any shape. So as your challenge this time, I want you to, so hopefully you've done this by creating a function for a square and a gap of 4 squares. Try and do it for creating a line of 10 squares using functions. But then I want you to then create a function for moving to the next row and drawing a row of 10 squares, and then drawing a 10 by 10 grid. And to help you here, if we just go back to Python, you'll need to create a function using this, but there's another command. So I've had to put pen up and pen down between this, because when you use this, it will just move the pen, and if you don't use pen up, it will draw it on the paper. So there's one called set pos, where you can move your pen around the paper. Now, 0, 0 is in the middle. Minus 200 is X, and we're telling it X to the left of the center. So we're saying 200 left to the center. And 0 is going to be, so 0 is in the middle in terms of height, up and down. If I do 200, I'm saying minus 200 from the center to the left, and then we're saying 200 above from the center. Okay, so there's your challenge, is to then create a grid of 10 by 10 squares. Good luck, Northanger students, and I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you next time.